In Mark chapter 8, beginning with the first verse, we read, "In those days, when again a great crowd had gathered, and they had nothing to eat, he called his disciples to him and said to them, 'I have compassion on the crowd, because they've been with me now 3 days and have nothing to eat. And if I send them away hungry to their homes, they will faint on the way, and some of them have come from far away.' And his disciples answered him, 'How can one feed these people with bread here in this desolate place?' And he asked them, 'How many loaves do you have?' They said, 'Seven.' And he directed the crowd to sit down on the ground. And he took the 7 loaves, and having given thanks, he broke them and gave them to his disciples to set before the people. And they set them before the crowd. And they had a few small fish, and having blessed them, he said that these also should be set before them. And they ate and were satisfied. And they took up the broken pieces left over, 7 baskets full. And there were about 4,000 people. And he sent them away. And immediately he got into the boat with his disciples and went to the district of Dalmanutha. If this sounds familiar to you, it's because you've heard a very similar story earlier in Mark's gospel account. At that time, Jesus had been trying to get to a desolate place with his apostles, and a crowd of 5,000 men had raced them there. And Jesus, after spending a day healing and teaching them, had compassion and fed that multitude with 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. This story is similar in many ways. This time, though, Jesus utilizing 7 loaves of bread and a few fish to feed a crowd of 4,000 after 3 days of teaching and healing, and the people going without eating that whole time. Again, as in the earlier story, we see Jesus as someone with tremendous compassion, caring in a way even his own disciples didn't at that particular moment, about the needs of the people around him. We see Jesus as somebody with miraculous ability, receiving from God himself the ability to take such a small quantity of food and not only provide for everyone's needs until they were satisfied, but to even have basketfuls left over. Yet, part of why I think this particular miracle gets included in the gospel account after another so similar one has already been recorded is to highlight the fact that even when Jesus consistently shows compassion like this, sometimes even those of us closest to him don't get it. We still act surprised that Jesus should want to show compassion, that Jesus has the ability to work a miracle like this. For us as outside observers, it probably seems painfully obvious, the similarities between this and the earlier example of Jesus feeding the 5,000, so much so that the disciples probably seem a little dense to us for even asking where they were going to get food. But the fact of the matter is, sometimes as followers of Jesus, we're like that. Even though we have seen Jesus do absolutely amazing things for ourselves, we enter other situations and we find ourselves right back to some of those same old habits of anxiety, of doubt, of struggle. We fail to realize that what Jesus has done for us in the past is meant to help us know who he is, to know how he cares, and to give us confidence that one way or another he's going to provide. For us, it seems so obvious that the differences between a crowd of 5,000 in a desolate place and a crowd of 4,000, that the differences between 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish and 7 loaves of bread and a few fish are negligible, that clearly Jesus is more than able to do the same thing. Yet in our own lives, sometimes we fail to see the similarities between one health battle and another. We fail to see the similarities between one stressful work situation and another. We so easily will receive and be satisfied, be made full from Jesus' compassionate provision in one situation. But then we come up to another, but this is different. because when we're the ones in it, it can be so hard to see. But notice that even though it should have been clear, Jesus still takes the time to show his disciples, to show the crowd again his compassion. Even though they should have gotten it, Jesus doesn't throw up his hands in despair or disgust. He walks them through it again. He lets them see again his power and his compassion, trusting that in time, while they clearly don't get it yet, one day they will. He involves those disciples again, giving them a job to do so that they can see for themselves how he provides. And that's the opportunity for us. Jesus cares. If you think about it enough, you can recognize times in your own life where you have been a recipient of his compassion, where you have been a beneficiary of his great power. And sometimes we forget that because now we're in a new situation with different problems and different concerns. But let this story, let knowing Jesus through what happened here in Mark be a reminder to you. Jesus cares. Jesus is able to help. All of those ways you've seen him work in your life up till now will continue to be true as you seek him. And as you seek him, seek to serve him like these disciples. They didn't completely get it. Their faith, their understanding wasn't what we think it should have been at this point. It wasn't even what Jesus wanted it to be at this point. But Jesus gave them something to do, and they did it. And as they faithfully worked with him, he trusted that in time they would come to understand, that in time they would grow. So let's be people that seek out those places where Jesus is working, and let's work with him. Even if we don't completely have it yet, even though we struggle with our own weaknesses and doubts, let's faithfully serve Jesus and trust that in time our understanding will grow. We will come to know Jesus better, and he will fully transform us by that great compassion and power as we see it in our lives again and again and again.